You're a disgrace to this family." My mother's voice cut through the restaurant like a knife. She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Every head in the dining room turned toward our table. My Aunt Beatrice gasped. My cousin Marcus stopped mid-bite. Even strangers at nearby tables stared at us. My heart hammered in my chest as Mom pointed her finger directly at me. I opened my mouth to speak, but she raised her hand. "Don't. Just don't embarrass us more than you already have." My husband Tyler sat beside me, his eyes fixed on his plate. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look at me. The silence felt like drowning. I tried to breathe normally, but my hands shook under the table. Then the waiter approached with the black leather bill folder. He placed it in the center of our table. I watched Mom's face as I slowly reached for it, opened it, and slid the receipt across the white tablecloth toward her. Her eyes dropped to the paper. The color drained from her face completely. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Mom's fingers trembled as she picked up the receipt. Her lips moved silently, reading the name on the credit card used for payment. "This can't be right," she whispered. But it was right. The entire meal, the expensive steaks, the lobster tails, the imported wine she'd insisted on ordering, had been paid using Dad's private bank account. The account she'd told everyone no longer existed after he died 2 years ago. Aunt Beatrice leaned over to look. "Patricia, isn't that Harold's card?" "I thought you closed that account." Mom's face went from white to red. There must be some mistake." But there was no mistake. I'd used the account deliberately. I'd accessed it 3 weeks ago when I finally discovered the truth about everything. Tyler shifted uncomfortably beside me. He knew what this meant. Cousin Marcus looked confused, glancing between Mom and me. The waiter stood nearby, sensing tension but unsure whether to leave or stay. Mom's hand crushed the receipt. "Where did you get this card?" Her voice was barely controlled now. 2 months earlier, I'd been cleaning out Dad's old study in the house where I grew up. Mom had asked me to box up his remaining books. She wanted to redecorate, she said, turn it into a yoga room. I'd agreed because I couldn't say no to her. I never could. That afternoon, while Tyler was at work, I knelt on the hardwood floor surrounded by dusty boxes. I reached for a thick accounting textbook on the bottom shelf. As I pulled it out, something fell behind the bookcase. I heard it hit the floor with a soft thud. I peered into the gap between the bookcase and wall. There was a slim leather folder wedged there. I had to move the entire bookcase to reach it. Inside the folder were bank statements, account numbers, and passwords written in Dad's handwriting. But that wasn't the shocking part. Clipped to the statements was a voice recording device, one of those small digital ones. It was still charged. My finger hovered over the play button for a long moment before I pressed it. The recording started with shuffling sounds, then voices. Mom's voice, and Tyler's. "She doesn't need to know about Harold's estate," Mom said clearly. "If she finds out, she'll want control of everything." Tyler's response made my blood run cold. "I understand. You said if I help you with this, you'll guide me into managing the inheritance properly." "Exactly," Mom replied. "Think of it as a partnership. We handle the money, and Rebecca never has to worry about financial decisions. She's always been too emotional for that kind of responsibility anyway." I sat frozen on the study floor, the device clutched in my hand. They were talking about me like I was a child, like I was incompetent. "What about the new will Harold mentioned?" Tyler asked. Mom's laugh was bitter. "Taken care of. As far as anyone knows, the original will stands. Everything comes to me as his widow, and I'll distribute it as I see fit." The recording continued for another 10 minutes. By the end, I understood everything. They'd been planning this for months. I tore through Dad's study that night after Tyler fell asleep. Every drawer, every box, every forgotten corner. Finally, in a locked filing cabinet, the key was taped under Dad's desk. I found it. A cream-colored envelope marked "Last Will and Testament Updated Version." My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a will dated exactly 1 month before Dad died of his sudden heart attack. He'd changed everything. The document named me as sole beneficiary of his savings accounts, his trust fund, and 3 properties I didn't even know he owned. There was a beach house in Clearwater, a rental property in Atlanta, and the family home where Mom still lived. Everything was supposed to come to me. The signatures were legitimate. Dad's lawyer, Thomas Bradford, had witnessed it. There was even a notary seal, but I'd never seen this will before. At Dad's funeral, Mom's lawyer had read a completely different document, one that left everything to her, with a small trust for me that Tyler would help manage. I realized with horror that Mom had hidden this will. She'd pretended it didn't exist. The next morning, I called Thomas Bradford's office without telling Tyler. The secretary scheduled me for that same afternoon. Thomas was in his 60s with kind eyes and gray hair. He'd known my father for 30 years. When I showed him the will I'd found, his face went pale. "Rebecca, I've been waiting for you to come see me." He pulled a folder from his desk drawer. "Your father gave me a copy of this will. He was worried something might happen to the original. He told me if anything happened to him, I should make sure you got it. Why didn't you contact me after he died?" My voice cracked. Thomas looked uncomfortable. "I tried. Your mother said you were too grief-stricken to handle estate matters. She assured me she'd give you the will when you were ready. When months passed and you didn't contact me, I assumed she had." He leaned forward. "Rebecca, if your mother suppressed this will, that's illegal. She could face serious legal consequences. I need to ask you something important. Do you want peace with your family, or do you want justice?" I didn't answer Thomas's question right away. Instead, I asked him for copies of everything. 2 days later, I drove to Clearwater. The beach house was supposed to be mine according to Dad's will. I'd never even seen it. I found it easily using the address from the documents. It was beautiful. White siding, blue shutters, a wraparound porch facing the ocean. But when I tried to use the key Thomas had given me, the lock had been changed. I walked around to the back and peered through windows. The house was furnished and clearly occupied. Someone's coffee mug sat on the kitchen counter. A yoga mat was rolled up by the sliding glass door. I called the property management company listed on Dad's documents. "Oh yes, that property," the woman said cheerfully. "Mrs. Patricia Holloway has been renting that out for the past 18 months. Very reliable landlord." My mother was my landlord on my own property. When I went inside, I'd convinced the management company to let me in as the owner. My childhood things were gone. The photo albums Mom said she'd safely stored. Dad's collection of vintage watches. His favorite paintings. All vanished. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Chen, no relation to my cousin Marcus. It took him less than a week to find where everything had gone. "Your mother organized an estate sale," he explained, showing me printed receipts. "She listed it as private collection sale at an auction house in Tampa. Watches, paintings, books, jewelry, everything sold." The total amount shocked me. Over $200,000 in items that should have been mine. "Where did the money go?" I asked. Marcus handed me bank statements. Personal accounts under her name. Looks like she had significant credit card debt. The sale covered most of it. I felt sick. Dad's treasures, my inheritance, sold to pay for Mom's shopping habits. "There's something else," Marcus said carefully. "The highest value item was your father's Rolex collection. 3 watches worth about $80,000 total. I tracked down who bought them." He slid another paper across his desk. The buyer's name was Tyler Morrison, my husband's name. But we didn't have that kind of money. I would have known if Tyler spent $80,000, unless he hadn't used our money. I checked our joint bank account that night after Tyler went to bed. Nothing showed an $80,000 withdrawal. But when I logged into my personal savings account, the one I'd built up from my teaching salary over 8 years, my stomach dropped. 3 withdrawals, 25,000, 28,000, 27,000, all made 2 weeks apart, all from locations near the auction house. Tyler had accessed my account using the shared banking app we'd set up years ago for emergencies. He'd bought my father's watches with my own money. When I confronted him the next morning, he actually looked annoyed that I'd found out. "I was protecting them," he said defensively. "Your mom was going to sell them to strangers. I bought them so they'd stay in the family. With my money, without asking me." "I knew you'd get emotional about it," he said, exactly like Mom had described me. "This way was easier. Plus, your mom said once things were properly settled, we'd get reimbursed from the estate." That's when I knew for certain. They were working together. They'd planned all of this. I needed proof of their conspiracy. Just having Dad's will wasn't enough. I needed evidence that they were actively working against me. I went to an electronics store and bought a voice-activated recording device. That evening, I hid it under the living room couch before Tyler came home. I left for my book club early, making a show of saying I'd be gone for 3 hours. But I only stayed for 1 hour. Then I sat in my car around the corner from our house and waited. At 8 p.m., headlights pulled into our driveway, Mom's silver Mercedes. I watched through the window as Tyler let her inside. They went straight to the living room. My recording device was running. The next morning, after Tyler left for work, I retrieved it with shaking hands. I pressed play. Mom's voice came through crystal clear. The beach house rental is bringing in $4,000 a month. Once we're past the 2-year mark, it'll be harder for her to contest anything. What if she finds the new will? Tyler asked. She won't. I destroyed the original. Thomas Bradford only has a copy and he won't act without her requesting it. She's too obedient to question me. And once she's legally cut out, everything becomes ours to manage properly. I sat on my bedroom floor, tears streaming down my face. My own mother, my own husband. I didn't confront them. That would have been pointless. Instead, I started building a case the way Dad had taught me, carefully and thoroughly. Dad had been an accountant. He'd always said, "Numbers don't lie, Rebecca. When someone tries to cheat you, the proof is in the paper trail." I made copies of everything. Bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals, auction records with Tyler's name, the rental income from my beach house going into Mom's account, the recordings of their conversations. Dad's updated will with Thomas Bradford's authentication. I created a folder 3 inches thick. I kept it locked in my desk at school where I taught 4th grade. Nobody would think to look there. Every few days, I'd add something new. An email Tyler had sent Mom about managing the situation. A text message where Mom told Tyler to keep Rebecca distracted. Property tax records showing Mom listed as owner of Dad's properties. I was building an airtight case. And I was doing it quietly, without giving them any hint that I knew. 2 weeks into my investigation, I received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Regarding Harold Holloway's estate urgent." It was from Vincent Palmer, Dad's accountant for 20 years. We met at a coffee shop the next day. Vincent looked nervous. "I probably should have reached out sooner," he admitted. "But I wasn't sure if I should get involved. Your father was my friend, and I suspected something wasn't right after he died." He slid a thick envelope across the table. "Your father gave me this 6 weeks before he passed. He made me promise to hold on to it unless something seemed wrong with how his estate was handled." Inside the envelope was a journal. Dad's handwriting filled every page. My throat tightened as I read his familiar script. "What's in it?" Vincent asked gently. I flipped through pages of financial records, personal thoughts, and detailed accounts of Mom's spending habits. "Evidence," I whispered. "So much evidence." The journal documented years of Mom draining their joint accounts without Dad's knowledge. Luxury purchases, secret credit cards, money transferred to accounts Dad couldn't access. Near the end, Dad had written, "I'm changing my will tomorrow. I can't let Patricia do to Rebecca what she's done to me." I read Dad's journal cover to cover that night. His words painted a picture I'd never wanted to see. Mom had been financially unfaithful throughout their marriage. She'd opened credit cards in both their names, maxing them out on designer clothes and spa treatments while telling Dad they needed to budget carefully. She'd taken out a second mortgage on their house without his signature, forging documents. When Dad discovered it, she'd cried and promised to fix everything. But she hadn't. The spending continued. Dad wrote, "I can't divorce Patricia. The scandal would destroy Rebecca. She loves her mother despite everything, but I can protect Rebecca's future. I'm changing my will to ensure Patricia can't touch Rebecca's inheritance." A few pages later, I told Patricia today about the new will. She seemed accepting, said she understood, but I don't trust her. I'm giving Thomas Bradford a copy and instructing him to give it to Rebecca if anything seems wrong. The final entry was dated 3 days before Dad died. I feel like Patricia knows I'm protecting Rebecca. She's been unusually kind lately, almost nervous. "If I die suddenly, please let Rebecca know I always believed in her." The last page was torn out, carefully removed, leaving only ragged edges. The missing page haunted me. What had Dad written that was so important Mom had to destroy it? I drove to the family home when I knew Mom would be at her yoga class. I'd kept my old house key, though I rarely visited anymore. The house felt different now, like a crime scene. I went straight to Mom's bedroom, something I'd never have dared to do before. Her drawers were organized and neat. Designer scarves, expensive jewelry, credit cards from stores I couldn't afford. In the bottom drawer of her nightstand, beneath a stack of magazines, I found a small leather pouch. Inside was a folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Dad's handwriting. The missing journal page. "This is my final entry. If this page is missing from my journal, then Patricia is the one who stole it. That means she's already begun hiding my wishes from Rebecca. To my daughter, trust your instincts. You're stronger than your mother ever gave you credit for. The new will is real. Thomas Bradford has copies. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You deserve everything I'm leaving you, and you don't need anyone's permission to claim it. I love you. Always have, always will. Dad. With Dad's journal, the recordings, the financial documents, and the authenticated will, I finally had everything I needed. I called Thomas Bradford and told him I was ready to proceed. This will likely destroy your relationship with your mother, Thomas warned me gently. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Mom calling me a disgrace before I'd even done anything. I thought about her stealing my inheritance and selling Dad's belongings. I thought about her conspiring with my husband to keep me in the dark. She destroyed our relationship herself, I answered. Thomas filed emergency motions with the probate court. Within 48 hours, we had injunctions freezing all accounts connected to Dad's estate. Every rental income payment, every property sale, every asset Mom had been controlling. The beach house tenants received notices that the property had changed ownership and their rent checks should be made out to me now. The Atlanta rental property was the same. Even the family home, Mom's residence, was frozen pending the court's decision. My phone started ringing within hours. Mom called 17 times. Tyler called 23. I answered none of them. Not yet. 3 days after freezing the accounts, I sent Mom and Tyler a text message. Lunch at Rosario's restaurant. Saturday at noon. Please be there. We need to talk. Rosario's was the fanciest restaurant in town. The same place we'd celebrated Dad's last birthday. Mom texted back immediately. Of course, sweetheart, I'm glad you want to work things out. Tyler replied. See you there. They thought I was going to apologize. I could tell from their messages. They thought I'd gotten scared about the legal action and wanted to back down. I also invited Aunt Beatrice, Cousin Marcus, and Uncle Frank, Dad's brother who'd always been kind to me but lived out of state. I told them it was a family reconciliation lunch. They all agreed to come. Saturday morning, I dressed carefully. A navy dress Dad always said looked professional on me. His pearl earrings that Mom hadn't managed to sell. I put the folder of evidence in my car trunk. Thomas Bradford was meeting me at the restaurant separately. I arrived 15 minutes early and confirmed everything with the restaurant manager, who I'd spoken with earlier that week. Everything was arranged exactly as I'd planned. Everyone arrived within minutes of each other. Mom walked in wearing her expensive designer outfit, kissing my cheek like nothing was wrong. Tyler squeezed my hand under the table, probably thinking I'd crumbled under pressure like I always did. Aunt Beatrice smiled warmly. Cousin Marcus looked happy to see everyone together. Uncle Frank seemed tired from his flight but glad to be there. We ordered appetizers and drinks. Mom insisted on expensive wine. Get the good bottle, she told the waiter. We're celebrating family. Tyler ordered the most expensive steak on the menu. I noticed Mom and Tyler exchanging satisfied glances, probably thinking they'd won. That I'd accepted their control. That I was still the obedient daughter and submissive wife who never questioned anything. We were halfway through the meal when Mom stood up suddenly. The conversation had turned to Dad, and I'd mentioned how much I missed his guidance. That's when Mom snapped. Well, if you'd actually listened to Harold while he was alive instead of being such a disappointment, maybe you'd have better judgment now. The table went silent. Patricia, Uncle Frank said quietly, but Mom wasn't finished. She pointed at me, her voice rising. You're a disgrace to this family. The restaurant went silent. Every conversation stopped. Waiters froze mid-step. At nearby tables, people turned to stare at us. My face burned with humiliation. Aunt Beatrice looked shocked. Cousin Marcus put down his fork. Uncle Frank's mouth opened, but no words came out. Tyler just sat there, studying his plate like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. Not defending me, not stopping Mom, nothing. I wanted to disappear, to run from the restaurant and never come back. But then the waiter appeared with the bill folder. Perfect timing, just like I'd arranged. I took a slow breath, feeling Dad's earrings brush against my neck. I reached for the black leather folder before anyone else could. Inside was the receipt for our expensive meal. $147. I opened it calmly, my hands surprisingly steady now. Then I slid it across the white tablecloth directly toward Mom. Speaking of disgrace, I said quietly, why don't you tell everyone whose account paid for this meal? Mom's eyes dropped to the receipt. I watched her face change. Confusion first, then recognition. Then absolute terror. Her fingers shook as she picked up the small slip of paper. Attached to the receipt with a paperclip was a copy of Dad's updated will. The real one. The one nomming me as sole beneficiary. Mom's face went from red to white in seconds. What is this? Her voice barely worked. That's the will Dad signed 1 month before he died, I said clearly. The one you hid from everyone. The one that leaves everything to me. Aunt Beatrice leaned over to look. Her eyes widened as she read the document. Patricia, is this real? Uncle Frank took the will from her hands, his expression darkening as he scanned the pages. Tyler whispered, Rebecca, let's talk about this privately. No. My voice was stronger than I'd ever heard it. We're done talking privately. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared, the thick one with all the evidence. I laid it on the table in front of everyone. Bank statements showing Mom renting out my beach house and keeping the income. Auction records where she sold Dad's belongings, including his watch collection that Tyler bought with my money without my permission. Voice recordings of you two planning to keep me in the dark about my inheritance. Cousin Marcus looked between Mom and Tyler with disgust. You sold Uncle Harold's things. This is ridiculous, Mom tried, but her voice shook. Rebecca is clearly having some kind of breakdown. Actually, a voice interrupted from behind me, Rebecca is the only person here thinking clearly. Thomas Bradford stepped forward from where he'd been waiting near the restaurant entrance. He walked to our table carrying his briefcase. Mom looked like she might faint. Tyler's face went gray. Mr. Bradford, Mom stammered. This is a private family lunch, which is now a legal matter, Thomas said firmly. He pulled out papers from his briefcase. Mrs. Holloway, you've been served with official notice. The probate court has frozen all assets connected to Harold Holloway's estate pending a full investigation into your handling of his will. He turned to Tyler. Mr. Morrison, you're also named in the complaint for participating in financial manipulation of the estate beneficiary and unauthorized use of your wife's funds. The restaurant manager appeared. I've prepared a private room as requested, he said to me. I nodded. Please, everyone bring your things. We need privacy for this conversation. Aunt Beatrice, Uncle Frank, and Cousin Marcus stood immediately, gathering their belongings. Mom and Tyler had no choice but to follow as the manager led us to a quiet room in the back of the restaurant. Once the door closed, Thomas laid out more documents on the table. The full evidence, all of it. Thomas went through everything methodically. The original will Mom had hidden, the rental income she'd collected from my properties, the auction receipts, Dad's journal entries documenting her secret spending, the recording of her conversation with Tyler about cutting me out. Mrs. Holloway, Thomas said formally, you not only violated the legal will of your deceased husband, but you committed fraud by suppressing a legal document and profiting from assets that weren't yours to control. He turned to Tyler. Mr. Morrison, by participating in this scheme and using your wife's money without authorization to purchase estate items, you're guilty of financial manipulation and possibly fraud. Mom started crying, loud, dramatic sobs. I was just trying to protect the family finances. Harold wasn't thinking clearly when he changed that will. Dad was perfectly clear, I interrupted. He knew exactly what you were doing to him, and he wanted to protect me from the same thing. Uncle Frank spoke for the first time since entering the room. Patricia, I never liked you much. You were always too focused on money, but I never thought you'd steal from your own daughter. Tyler reached for my hand. Rebecca, please, we can fix this. It was a misunderstanding. I pulled my hand away. No, we can't fix this. I opened my purse and pulled out one final document, divorce papers, signed by me, prepared by a lawyer I'd hired the week before, completely finalized except for Tyler's signature. I slid them across the table to my husband. I'm done, I said simply, with both of you. Tyler's face went pale. You're not serious. Rebecca, come on. We've been married for 6 years. You can't just throw that away. You threw it away when you conspired with my mother to steal from me. Mom was still crying, but now there was anger in her eyes. You ungrateful child, after everything I did for you. What did you do for me, Mom? I asked. You sold my father's belongings, you stole my inheritance, you rented out my house and kept the money, you convinced my husband to help you, you called me a disgrace in front of everyone. I stood up, feeling stronger than I'd felt in years. I was never the disgrace, you were. Tyler was staring at the divorce papers. I'm not signing these. You can't make me. You don't have to sign immediately, my lawyer had told me earlier, but it'll be easier for you if he does. I didn't care if it was easier anymore. There's one more thing, I said. Something Dad left for me that Mom doesn't know about. I pulled out my phone and opened a video file. Thomas had given it to me the week before, though I'd waited until this moment to watch it myself. I connected my phone to the restaurant's TV screen that hung on the private room wall. Dad's face appeared. The video was dated 5 days before his death. He was sitting in his study, the same room where I'd found his hidden folder. "Hi, Rebecca," Dad's voice made my throat tight. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone and Thomas gave you this file like I asked him to. I want you to know something important." On screen, Dad leaned forward. "Everything I own, the beach house, the rental property, the savings, the trust fund, the family home, all of it belongs to you. Not to manage someday, not to share. It's yours completely. I earned it through 40 years of hard work and I want you to have it." He paused. "Your mother is probably going to fight you on this. She thinks money is love and she's going to want control. Don't let her take what's yours. You're smart, Rebecca. You're capable. You don't need anyone to manage your life for you." The video continued. "If anyone tries to take from you," Dad said, his voice strong and clear, "they're not taking from you, they're taking from me, and I don't give permission for that." He smiled sadly. "I'm sorry I won't be there to help you fight this battle, but I know you can do it. You're my daughter. You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for." The video ended. The room was completely silent. Mom had stopped crying. She just sat there, staring at the blank screen. Aunt Beatrice was wiping her eyes. Uncle Frank looked at Mom with pure disappointment. Cousin Marcus shook his head slowly. Tyler seemed to have shrunk in his chair. I disconnected my phone and stood up. "You called me a disgrace, Mom, but everyone in this room now knows who the real disgrace is." I looked at Tyler. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. I'm moving back to the beach house, my beach house, next week. Stay away from me." I turned to Thomas. "Please proceed with all legal actions we discussed." Then I walked to the door. Before leaving, I looked back one final time. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted what was mine. Dad made sure I got it. 6 weeks later, I stood on the porch of the Clearwater Beach House watching the sunset over the Gulf of Mexico. The legal battles had been exhausting, but worth it. The court had ruled in my favor on every count. All of Dad's properties were transferred to my name. Mom had been ordered to repay the rental income she'd collected, over $70,000. She'd also been fined for suppressing the will. Tyler had signed the divorce papers after his lawyer explained he had no choice. He'd moved out of our apartment and I'd heard he was staying with his parents. I didn't care. Inside the beach house, I'd restored everything I could. I'd tracked down some of Dad's belongings from auction buyers. Many were sympathetic when they heard the story and sold items back to me at cost. His favorite painting hung in the living room. His books lined the shelves in the study. It felt like home. My phone rang. It was Thomas Bradford. "Good news, Rebecca. The final asset transfers are complete. Everything is officially in your name now, free and clear." I thanked him and hung up. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky orange and pink. I thought about Dad, wishing he could see this moment, wishing he could know I'd fought for myself the way he'd hoped I would. Mom had tried to reconcile twice, leaving voicemails about family forgiveness. I hadn't responded. Maybe someday, but not today. For now, I was exactly where I needed to be, in the home Dad had left me. Living the life he'd wanted me to have. I didn't get revenge on Mom and Tyler. I simply took back what was always mine. And honestly, that was better than any revenge could have been.